installation. Is all about pricing. Uh-oh, we have something happening. There we go. Okay, we're live and apparently have been for a bit. So welcome everybody. Hopefully this is actually working because it's all black on my screen. But the clock is ticking. So we're going to assume that it's working and that you can see me and that all is well in the world. So hello and welcome everybody. Jeanette Anderson here with Bodacity.ca. Welcome all my bodacious entrepreneurs to this week's Bodacity show. This week, I'm going to talk to you. Oh, now it's streaming live on Facebook. Okay, and it says it's setting up the meeting live, even though it's been going for 1 minute and 30 seconds. So I may have to do the intro again. If you are watching all this, welcome to the new and wild and wonderful world of going straight from Zoom to Facebook for live streaming. So now I don't know if it's working because it doesn't show my page. So hello everybody, Jeanette Anderson here with the Bodacity show. This week we are talking about, for all my bodacious entrepreneurs, we are talking about pricing strategies, how to price your products and services, especially for services that can be very challenging to figure out how do you price yourself. I've got a few simple tips because, you know me, I like to keep things simple. I like it to be doable. I've worked with entrepreneurs for over 40 years. And here's what I know. There are very complex ways of thinking about everything in our business. There's lots of complicated ways to do things, systems, processes that we can put in place. And the reality is most entrepreneurs simply don't. And they let that stop them from getting into action, getting into the marketplace, and being the difference that they can be and only they can be. So I'm really committed at Bodacity to supporting you to be the difference that only you can be. And one of the ways to do that is to turn your purpose and passion into action so that you can create a business, be of service to the people that you can serve. So today I want to talk to you about a way to be in service, and that is to sell yourself. The reality is, unless you are independently wealthy and can afford to do this as a charity, unless you sell, you can't serve. And so it's very important that you actually be able to sell yourself effectively. One of the things that is a component of being able to do that is your pricing strategy. Pricing impacts a number of things. One, it impacts your sales process, so how you sell yourself. So pricing needs to be accessible, understandable, simple, and easy to sell. The other thing, of course, that impacts is your profitability. So are you charging in your pricing not just for your time or your product, but also, of course, for all the operational costs, all the investment in marketing and sales, all the infrastructure you pay for, your education, the team, any of the costs or expenses that it takes for you to run and deliver your business or your service, including customer acquisition costs, needs to be factored into your pricing. So we'll talk more about the specifics of that in a few minutes, but really what that means is I don't want you to be thinking of your price. If you're a coach or a speaker or a trainer and you're making $200 an hour, or you're charging $200 for an hour for your coaching, you are not making $200 an hour. You're making maybe $60 an hour, because for most coaches, especially if you're new, typically it's about a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 hours, and that's just very generous. If you're just starting out, it's more like 5 or 10 hours for one. So the time that it takes you to sell the client, to get the new client, to put them into the process administratively, to follow up on them, to invoice them, to bill them, all of those things have to be factored into the hours of your rate, because you're only getting $200 for that hour, as opposed to, woo, I'm getting $200 for that hour. It has to be amortized out over all those expenses. So I want you to think about it from the position of your profitability as well as your positioning. So our pricing absolutely impacts how we're seen. If you're priced at a premium price, then you better be delivering premium services to a premium client. You need to be positioned in the mind of your client. So, for instance, people who go and shop at Louis Vuitton tend not to go shop at Walmart, and vice versa. The difference, they're both stores, they both sell handbags, for example. One sells them for several $1,000s and one sells them for 10 to 20. Okay, they have different pricing strategies. Both of them have purses. The client is buying the same solution, something to carry their stuff around in. But one sells for 5,000 and one for 50. That's a positioning strategy as much as it is about the quality of the actual service itself. Yes, one would hope the quality of the Louis Vuitton purse is higher than that of the Walmart purse. Quality is a factor in the positioning, but it's as much about the store and the customer as it is about the quality of the product. You with me? So absolutely, that is a component of your strategy. Your pricing is positioning, profitability, and what I'm going to call practicality. Does it fit with who you are, what you're doing, and how you're serving? So I'm going to bring up a couple of slides to show you some factors to take into account when you're actually pricing your services. Okay, first is, or ways to figure out your pricing. Sorry. So if you're trying to figure out your pricing strategy, perhaps for the first time, then one of the things that I recommend you do is go check out your competition. You can do it one of two ways. One is the one I recommend, and one is the one that people often do. And that is call up your competition and let them know. By the way, I do something similar to you. I have a similar training program. I have a similar speech. I have a similar coaching service. I have a similar product. And I'm curious what your pricing is for your product because I'm just doing some market research. Would you be willing to share that with me? In my experience, most often the people will tell you because pricing is almost always a matter of public record. In other words, you can find it if you hunt it down hard enough. Now, that's not always the case, and especially as a competitor, they might not be inclined to want to tell you. But in my experience, especially if my grounding is very much that we're co-opetition, that in fact we may be competitors, but there are possibilities that we could actually work together. If you've got a slightly different training than I do, then maybe we cross-refer. If you've got the same training that I do, but we have clients who buy the same content over and over, we could cross-refer and joint venture. So there's lots of grounding, I come from an attitude of that people are not my competition, they might be my co-opetition at best, and someone that I can cooperate with, collaborate with, and be part of the same community. So I tend not to get much resistance or pushback if I ask, because I come from that space. I come from that belief structure. If you believe that people are going to be secretive about their pricing and they aren't going to want to share it, you'll likely encounter that. I think we tend to get what we expect. So you can do the straightforward, be honest, tell them what the situation is, and ask. You could also do a secret shopper notion where you become a potential client. You phone them up and say, I'm, company XYZ, and we're looking at this kind of training, or we're looking for that kind of executive coach. And I'm curious what you charge. Now, many of them will actually have indications on their website. They might have information about the pricing structure, or a way for you to just automatically ask for it. So go and check with your competition. That's one way to find out what's typical in the market. Now, if you do check with your competition, one of the things that you can do is check in a geographically different region. People are less inclined to feel like you are going to, steal their clients if you're not in the same state or province as them. That's of course not necessarily true, but they might feel that way. And because we live in this global world, I coach people from all around the world, so I don't have a geographic limitation, but some bricks and mortar stores might, if you have a very geographically specific product or service, then that's going to make it easier for them. If you're doing that market research with competitors and you are in a global market, in other words, you're a trainer or speaker or someone who could travel, what I would encourage you to do is really take into account the areas that you're researching in. So for instance, if you're in, I'm going to say Alabama, and you're researching pricing in California for a similar service, or New York, chances are very good it's going to be much higher there than it is where you are. Conversely, if you're a California coach and you're checking out prices in Idaho, you're not going to get parity or an appropriate pricing comparison, but it will give you an indication of range in the marketplace. Okay, so yes, check out your competition, but then you really have to make a strategic decision of where are you going to position relative to your competitors. Are you on the top? Are you better than all of them? Do you have some kind of value add premium? Do you have some special methodology? Are you a celebrity? Do you have multiple books? Do you have reams of testimonials and social proof? Is there something that would put you at the top of the pile besides chutzpah, which we're going to come back to in just a moment? In which case, then you probably should have premium pricing that puts you at the very top end, if not at the top, of the pricing structure of the competitors that you work with. If you're not, then where are you going to land? Now, here's the problem with this. Middle of the pack is a dangerous place to be. If you look at stores, for instance, department stores, where are most of the ones that were in the middle of the pack? So in Canada, we used to have a store called Kmart. I think they had them in the States as well. Gone. Sears, Simpson Sears was another mid-range priced department store. Gone. You know, in the States, I'm trying to think of some of the common ones, not counting, you know, the current constraints that might put a few under, but it's challenging to be in the middle of the pack because you're kind of neither fish nor fowl. Don't be Walmart. No matter what you sell, no matter how new you are, no matter what, do not treat yourself like a commodity. Walmart is a commodity positioning, will beat any price. You are not selling commodities, unless you are actually selling a commodity, in which case then you got to figure out how to actually price based on commodity selling. And that's a challenging thing because someone can always undercut your pricing. So do not price as a commodity, which means, for instance, if you're a coach and you sell yourself by the hour versus by the result or by the package or by the bundle, you're pricing yourself as a commodity, an hour's work for an hour's pay. That sets up a certain kind of thinking in the minds of your prospects or your clients. So I want you to think about it from the perspective of where are you wanting to be positioned in your client's mind and relative to the rest of the marketplace. If your clients are people who don't have a lot of money, who are, let's call them spiritually minded, who are the kinds of people who are not premium shoppers, then you would be advised to have a pricing strategy that's going to appeal to that market. Don't always assume that people with no money have price sensitivity. I literally talked to a coach recently who was enrolling people in a course and literally converted homeless people in New York to be able to find the money to be able to come to this course. So if you can sell a course to a homeless person, you can sell just about anything to anyone as long as you're clear on the value provided and they're clear on the value received, then they will find a way to pay. So that said, do not let your considerations about money and scarcity and concerns about that get in the way of your pricing, because you're not pricing for you, you're pricing for practicality, for profitability, and for what meets your client's needs. Okay? So it's about them, not you. It's also about what the market will bear. There are times where it is appropriate to adjust your pricing because there is an upsurge in demand, there is a decrease in supply. Now, you know, some people might think that's usurious. It's actually fairly practical to follow the market. Uber did that with rush hour pricing. Now, they did get quite a bit of pushback on it, but they're still practicing it in some areas because it does equalize out the payments that they can afford to give to drivers, because they can charge more for a premium time slot like rush hours in the morning and in the evening, and less when it's less busy. So what the market will bear is totally a legitimate consideration, okay? And your pricing may adjust accordingly. Here's my number one criteria for how to set your prices. It is the amount that you can sell. If you can't get it out of your mouth, if you can't say it, then it's not the right price for you. I get so frustrated with seeing coach after coach after coach after program leaders say, oh, you got to raise your prices, you got to raise your prices, you need premium prices. Bullshit. Not if you can't sell it. It will take you out of the game if you put pricing out there that is not authentically what you actually can sell. So here's the balance I want you to strike. First of all, number one, you must get absolutely clear on the value you provide. Your pricing is an indication of not your value, the value you provide. Very big distinction there. So what's in it for that client and what's that worth? That's what the pricing should be. Now, you factor that in with what you can actually charge. If you are clear on your value and you're clear on the value that you provide and that your clients get from working with you, then absolutely you can charge a premium rate because you can point to those results. You have testimonials. If you're just starting out, it really is a function more of really getting the value you know you can provide and being willing to put it out there, perhaps at a beta price, to try it, to test it, not for free, but at a price that you can sell it at until you can gather that social proof. Which, by the way, the social proof, yes, it is for your prospective customers, but for most of you, it's actually for you. It's actually for you to get, wow, look at the incredible value I provide. How cool. Okay, yes, let me talk to people about my services. Let me go and sell myself. So it really is for you. I want you to have a fairly graphic sense of how to judge this. Here's what I want you to use as your barometer. If you can sit in a chair and you can say your price, I want you to imagine your ideal prospect is sitting across from you, and you can say, my rate is X, or my package costs Y, or my hourly rate is this, or you can have access to these services or products for this amount. And you have no squirming in your chair whatsoever. It's all very comfortable. Your price is probably too low. If you're sitting in the chair and you say that and your butt gets a little tight, you get a little bit of, constriction, that's the right price. If you give the chair a hickey and you get up to walk away and it sticks to you, your price is too high. All right. So I want you to price it at a really practical, just at the edge of your comfort zone so that you're pushing yourself, but not so far outside your comfort zone that you know you're never going to say it. You're never going to ask for it. You're going to skip over it. You're going to slough it off. You're going to, maybe send them a package, but you can't actually ask for it. And you're just not going to close. Okay. Likewise, don't make it so cheap that it's a no-brainer for you and it's easy and so forth. Stretch yourself. Really get your value that you provide and really be willing to own that and charge for it. You're doing both you and them a disservice if you underestimate and undervalue what you're giving. Okay, so what can you sell? That's the number one criteria for setting your pricing strategy. And yes, there's all sorts of other ways that you can do it. You can calculate your cost of delivery and production and put all your costs in, then figure out what your profit margin is going to be. And that's all very logical and sensible. And yes, you should do that as you get rolling and get into being a serious and sincere business, and that information, like what your cost of customer acquisition is and so on. But if you're just starting out, or if you're relaunching, or if you don't feel like you've got confidence right now, I encourage you to think about positioning and quality of service and what your clients' expectations are and how it's going to differentiate you in the market, yes, think about all those things. But most importantly, what can you sell if you are standing in owning your value and really standing for what matters to you, being the stand about who you are and what matters. Okay, one last thing on pricing, keep it simple. Sister, keep it simple, sister, because a confused mind doesn't buy. So you want to have it be something that is understandable, easy to consume, easy to remember, and easy for you to remember so you can sell it. And keep in mind, you're selling the solution, not the journey. What that means is what they're paying for, what they're actually buying is the outcome of what you're selling, not what you're selling. Okay? So sell the solution, not the journey. Now, there are some times where you would sell the journey, not necessarily the outcome, but not very many. So think about it. If you are, a travel agent and you're selling trips to the Orient, then you're selling the destination, but you could also sell it in a first class train that goes from, one country to another, or you could sell it as the standard tour package that takes you around on a bus and shows you 10 things in a week kind of thing. So it can be a combination in terms of your positioning, but by and large, you're selling the solution or the outcome of what you do, what you do does for them. So price accordingly, price based on the value you provide to them. So not your value, but the value that you provide to them. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. It will give you a starting place. I know this is a big, broad overview. Check out other people's pricing so that you get some external frame of reference. Here's the thing. Typically, men are very externally referenced and women are very internally referenced. When it comes to being a service provider, when it comes to pricing your businesses, go with the external referencing, not the internal. Do not listen to your fear, doubt, insecurity, and neuroses over what the market will bear. Go and check objectively what other people are paying for something similar to what you're offering, and then position accordingly above, below, or at the same price as that. As I said, men tend to be more externally referenced, so they'll go and compare themselves to the marketplace versus to some almost always unachievable or inattainable standard that we set for ourselves internally. Women tend to set the bar above where they are and continually move it just out of reach. Okay, so they won't price themselves very high because they haven't achieved this, and then they might, achieve more, but they're still not going to actually price themselves based on the value they provide now, because they're more focused on, oh, but I could still learn this and I could still provide that. Great. Price yourself based on the value you're providing now. And in most cases, that value has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with what you do does for your clients. So if you're not clear, go ask them. Go ask them what this is worth to them. Go ask them whether or not they thought that what they paid you was worthwhile. Go ask them what it did for them in their lives and what value would they put on that. Get some real data so that you get out of your head and out of your insecurity and into the world where you can price yourself appropriately. Set that price, and then, like I said, if you can say it and sell it with your butt going just a little bit tight, but not actually giving the chair a hickey, then you're off to the races. All right. So this has been your very down-home version of how to set your pricing for your products and services. If you have questions, if you want to share some of your observations, if you have ideas, if you'd like to get input on in pricing structure, then please go ahead and put your questions in the Facebook group, Bodacity's Action Heroes. If you haven't joined yet, then please do come and join us. It is a gathering community for bodacious entrepreneurs. And I am happy to support you in your journey. Happy to support you in getting your next 1 client, your next 10, or your next 100. It is a place for you to come and get the clarity, the community, the commitment, and the courage that you need to make those leaps. Thank you for being here on the Bodacity Show. We look forward to seeing you each week, and have a bodacious day. Bye, everybody.